Hi, I'm Steve Lentini, and I'm president and CEO of Lord and Lentini Training and Training for Life, leadership, sales, customer service. And so today's video, I wanted to talk about sales management and the role of sales management. I'm here in Dallas this week, and I'm working, and I'm also an interim sales manager in different companies around the country. And let me just tell you a little bit about what that does. So interim sales management for smaller companies that can't afford a full-time sales manager, or for larger companies that haven't had success, they get a lot of turnover in that role, they have a lot of frustration in the sales teams. I come in and I help them restructure, and it's a relatively simple process, but it's amazing to me how many people, and I'm grateful, how many people just don't think of it the way that I do and the way that others do. There's others that do what I do and very similar philosophies. I've looked into it. So because it works, it's productive. It's not all that, it's not rocket science. And yeah, are there some new tools today that are important? Yes, there are. I won't deny it, but a lot of them are overused, and what's happened is some of the basics that still work are overlooked. So the other thing that I see happening is when I go in is oftentimes it'll be the leader or the CEO, especially owners of entrepreneurial type companies, but even often CEOs of public companies, of fairly large companies, maybe they're not public, but fairly large companies, and they're the hired CEO, and their ego is so big, there's no room for people around them to grow, and they're actually shooting themselves in the foot, and they bring me in to tell me about their complaints about the sales manager or the sales team, and I say, so tell me the process, and what didn't you like, and how do you deal with it? And I find out that they were actually running up the back of the sales manager. And if the person left, good. That means the sales manager was strong enough to say, I'm not staying here for this. Even if they didn't say it that way, they just said, hey, I'm moving on. And a lot of times what I say is when I notice a project complete, I just say, it's complete as far as I'm concerned. And in many cases, it's because the leadership team just doesn't get it. They don't want to have people around them that challenge them or think differently. Because they have an ego, and so they think they're the only way, my way or the highway. That's even if they don't say it, that's what they think. And so what happens is they steal the thunder of the sales management, and they actually hurt themselves. They shoot themselves in the foot. The CEOs and leaders, entrepreneurs, do it all the time. Instead of building a consensus privately behind closed doors, if you like the person, you build a consensus, and then everybody leaves that room. You can have all kinds of debates, but everyone leaves that room with the same direction. And if somebody pushes against the sales manager and they go to the owner says, you got to go see the sales manager, because it's something we all agreed on. This is our process. If you don't like it, okay, then you got to go see the sales manager. You back up the sales manager. So in the case of sales management, what I find is lacking today is a process of people having a business plan that they file. Salespeople are business people. They should have a vision each year in the fall, October, November. They write a plan, their vision for the following year. Because, Earl Nightingale used to talk about what one sees is what one gets, right? We're going to see what we believe. It's not the other way around. A lot of people believe what they see, but actually what they don't know is it's manifesting because they're seeing what they believe. They're seeing what they believe. And that's the thing, is to always be listening to what's the message you put out with your words. What's the message that the whole company puts out? What's the culture like? So oftentimes I've seen cultures, I worked in a culture where there was no leadership. It was called indifference. And in working in that company, which was amazing to me, there were a lot of egos and people that knew better, knew how to run the company. Eventually the company died. Yeah, they all shot themselves in the foot. Eventually the company died. And there, the job was for leadership to be stronger, stand behind sales management, stand behind their own conviction, have a conviction about how things were going to be done, and not let the sales team run roughshod. And it was the sales team and other employees that were running roughshod over the whole company. There was no culture. There was no leadership. Okay, so we want something in between. That's the ideal. We want something in between. We don't want to run up the back of, we're so strong in our leadership that we run up the back of our managers of departments, or we run up the back of our vice president of sales or the sales director, whatever you call that person, the executive vice president. I've seen all kinds of titles. It boils down to the same role. You need to have a culture that supports certain boundaries. That's called leadership, and not everybody's going to agree with it. Can you have discussions about it and debate about it as a leadership team? Maybe get input for employees? Absolutely, why not? But then a decision has to be made. Somebody has to make a decision. Not everyone's going to be happy. And then you back it up. You back up your leadership team. Then sales managers. I'm going to give you a little coaching here. Part of what I do as interim sales manager, a lot of times companies will bring me in to help me coach someone who was a great salesperson, and they promote them to sales manager, and then they wonder why they're not a good sales manager. So I come in and coach them on a process that works really simply, and it works well. Can you have a CRM with it? Yes. But the CRM, by the way, is not the Bible. It doesn't become the Bible. It doesn't become the be-all and end-all, because a lot of people put a lot of junk in the CRM. It's ridiculous. It's not even a prospect yet. It's just an idea, a thought, a target. I want to understand pipeline, and pipeline is I've made a call. That's where it goes in the pipeline. I want to know if it's going to close within 30 to 60 days, or depending on the average of the sales cycle. So if it's a 6-month sales cycle, okay, what do you have that's in process, that's likely to close, or at least in process? We've made a call. We've made 2 calls. We've made 3 calls, and here's where we are. That's a pipeline. The other thing is I want salespeople, they're business people. I want them to give me a business plan in the fall, but not just something where I remember companies where they just felt bothered by the process and management really didn't stick up for it. It's very simple that a business owner or a manager or CEO should be saying, what do you mean you're not going to do a business plan for the vice president of sales or the sales manager? Absolutely. I want to see what your thinking is in your territory. Where's your new business going to come from? The other fallacy is that 100% commission, you don't need to manage salespeople. No, that's not true. That's not true. 1099s, there's certain things you can't tell them, certain things you can't do. You can't make certain things mandatory. Maybe the choice of having 1099s is not a good idea if you're not getting the results. Maybe you need employees. Okay, but everything should be open for discussion. And then the idea is to remember that you're manifesting what you're thinking about and speaking about as a leadership team. And what kind of culture do you have? Who's even asking that question? Who's measuring that? And then the business plan is a basic idea for sales teams. Every salesperson should have a business plan, a vision, because they're gonna eventually see what they believe. So what do they believe about their territory? What's possible? Who are the best targets? Who's at risk? Maybe there needs to be some activity with customers that may be at risk. Do they even understand that there's people at risk? I've had people write, no, I don't have anybody at risk, no threats. And then the next year they lose a midsize or a large customer. And they were stunned. They had no idea it required a few more touches from the company, maybe even touches from management. Another thing that sales managers need to be doing is being out on the road with sales teams and then meeting with sales people every month, but not just, hey, how you doing? How are things going? It's let's look where you are against your business plan. It was your plan. Let's look where you are against it. Let's look at your pipeline. Let's look who's moved in the pipeline, who's moved up a few clicks toward closing, who's moved down toward, maybe they get shot out of the funnel. And it's okay. It's okay. And then you want to manage their behavior. How many meetings do you have scheduled? How many appointments this month upcoming, or the next 2 weeks, or the next 3 weeks? Make sure to update me. I want to keep track of how many appointments you have. And by the way, let's get out your appointment book and let's look at 2 days that we're going to work together. It's important for different people in management, yes, to be meeting customers, especially important for the vice president of sales, the sales director, the sales manager, to be meeting people with salespeople, it's called ride withs. I was doing some ride withs for the last 5 months with a company, riding with one of their sales team. And it worked out great. I showed them some new ways to call, some ways that would make it comfortable, because there are no rejection, really, if you're thinking about it properly. There's a yes, 4 good outcomes, 4 approved outcomes, a yes, a no, a clear future, and a lesson. A lesson. The other thing that sales managers need to think about is that the salesperson's thinking when they're in front of them, it's very important to listen to the words that they speak, because a lot of times people express blocks because they'll talk about, oh, I've tried that when I can, or this one isn't working out, or that they'll have complaints, they'll sound whiny. You got to snap them out of that. No whiners. It just snap them out of it. That's your job as a sales manager. It's ontological coaching, listening to their words, because their words are pointing them to a future. If they sound limited, they're going to have a limited future, and that's part of the job of the sales manager. Plus, everyone's different. Everyone is different. That's the thing, is you're not going to bring a cookie cutter approach to each salesperson. So you have a business plan, a pipeline management, the real pipeline. A lot of times people put stuff in their pipeline just to please the boss, put stuff in the CRM. You've got to ferret that out. You've got to smoke that out. Then you listen to the words. You're actually coaching people. You listen to how they express themselves. Does it sound positive, enthusiastic? Does it sound like they've got a strategic handle on it, that they've really got a great vision for themselves, for the year, for their territory, for the month? And then, do they have appointments? What's their behavior? Their job is to manage their behavior. Who are they meeting? That's a salesperson's job, is to meet people. Then, what about skills training? Are they just showing up and throwing up? The salesperson of today, the modern salesperson, needs reinforcement training, ongoing process, ongoing sales training about how to approach people, questions to ask, not to be presenting too early. Also, challenge your sale. Know when to challenge someone, because a valued, trusted advisor is not always going to say yes, 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 yes. Then, if you're the CEO and you're the leader and you're strong and you know you're strong, you got a big ego, is your sales management team pushing back? Are they pushing back against you? Are they saying, hey, back off here, we need some respect, you're running up our back? If they're not, then guess what? You have yes men who aren't willing to challenge you, and that is very negative. Very negative. You'd rather have someone quit, because that wakes you up a little bit, and you can always call them back and go, hey, I'm sorry, we got to talk. And if they leave, they're doing you a favor. That means they were actually strong enough to not put up with your BS, and eventually they left. But that's also an indicator. If you have a lot of turnover, okay, that tells you something. If you haven't had a lot of turnover and you're not happy with the results, you have a mealy-mouthed, quiet person who's just happy to have a job and a paycheck. They're not serving you. They're not helping you lead either. You need someone that'll push back and say, hey, stop it. This doesn't work for me. Okay, so interim sales manager, it's what I do. I can help coach your sales manager. I can help coach the sales team. I can be the interim sales manager if you're at a place where you want to restructure, or if you just don't think at this point you can afford a sales manager. I can come in and do it on an interim basis, a couple days a week, 1 day a week, every week. Ride with the salespeople, get them the business plans, ferret out the pipeline. It's all stuff that I've been doing for over 40 years. Okay, how do you get to me? Steve at SteveLentini.com. Steve at SteveLentini.com. That's STEVE at STEVELENT as in Tom, INI.com. Steve at SteveLentini.com. My cell phone is 917-805-1088, 917-805-1088. Thanks a lot. Have a great week. Get out there selling.